Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be having a look at Pure Havane by Mugler versus Xerjoff Naxos. Before we get into that, in the last video I gave a few tips about being able to buy some great inexpensive alternatives to well-known designer fragrances, and I kind of enjoyed making that clip, I must admit. So we're going to have a continuation of that theme today.
Cool Water by Davidoff is a really refreshing, invigorating fragrance, but who knew there was an even cooler version called Cold Water? I love Armani fragrances and those by Hugo Boss, but nobody told me they'd collaborated to make this Napoleon Armani Bossy. I like Lacoste fragrances too, but they sure can be expensive. That's why I've now switched to Lacoste, and I've never looked back. Calvin Klein Man is a great fragrance, but who'd know the difference if you wore Clinking Men instead? For years I've been on the lookout for an inexpensive alternative to Acqua di Gio. Then I found Acqua di G10. The skin rash and the strange smell are a small price to pay for the huge bargain that I got on this one.
Okay guys, yes, welcome back. So today it's showdown time, and it's going to be Mugler's Pure Havane versus Naxos by Xerjoff. Two fragrances which are often compared to each other in very different price ranges. Today's video is brought to you sponsored by my friends over at Fragrance Samples UK. That is a fantastic place to sample fragrances in the UK and Europe. They ship to the UK and 14 other European countries that you'll find listed in the description.
And there's a link to the Fragrance Samples UK website in the description too.
They have an incredible range of over 600 niche and designer fragrances. All the big brands are there, Tom Fords, Xerjoffs. They've also got some of the less easy to find stuff that's not in your department store, like Bortnikov or Rogue Perfumery. So a superb place to sample fragrances and save yourself making big mistakes, blind buying scents. Also, of course, they've got the two fragrances in today's video there that you can try. So you could do your own showdown and make your own mind up. Okay guys, so let me know in the comments if you've tried either of these or both, and if you have a strong preference. Is Xerjoff Naxos worth the significantly higher price that we have to pay for it? If you enjoy the video, also don't forget to hit subscribe down there. If you're not already subscribed, then you won't miss other future videos that I make. Okay, so let's get stuck into the matter at hand. Two really good fragrances, I think. The thing that's similar about them is that they both share a primary kind of accord or combination of accords, which is a combination of tobacco with sweetness, maybe honey and tobacco, you could say, something like that. So they're definitely similar in their overall aura. Some people believe Naxos, which came along a few years after Pure Havane from Mugler, is basically a sort of improved copy or an attempt to improve it in a copied form. I don't know, we'll never know if that's true. I'm not so sure that's actually the case. I think perhaps coincidentally there's just a slight similarity in how the two smell. So before we get into my detailed comparison, or I hope it'll be detailed, I'll try, let's just have a little bit more important information about these two fragrances.
Okay, so Mugler Pure Havane. This is a 2011 release. The top notes in this one are tobacco, leaves and honey. In the mid we have patchouli, vanilla and cocoa, and the base notes are labdanum, styrax and amber. The perfumer, by the way, was Jacques Huslier, and he also did the original Amen, of which this is a flanker, and many of the other flankers to that one. Let's compare that to Xerjoff Naxos. It's a 2015 release. The perfumer doesn't appear to be listed anywhere that I looked online. Top notes are bergamot, lemon and lavender. The mid notes are jasmine, sambac, cinnamon, honey and cashmeran, and the base notes are tobacco leaf, tonka bean and vanilla. If you wanted to get yourself a sample of Naxos from Fragrance Samples UK, the smallest size, just 1ml, is only £3.85, and you can get up to a size of a 10ml travel spray, which would last you a good time, and that's just above £28 on their website, which is actually a pretty good chance to own the fragrance and have a decent amount without spending very much money.
Okay guys, so there we've heard the note listings. They're not super similar, aren't they? There's obviously some shared notes, but they're not exactly identical. So a lot of people say that if you like Naxos but you find it rather expensive, Pure Havane is a really great alternative. I reviewed Naxos years ago, gave it a 10 out of 10 rating. It is a superb fragrance, but we'll talk about Pure Havane first. This one came out before this one. So the fragrance, of course, is a flanker to the original Amen from Mugler, a very famous fragrance, kind of a tarry leather fragrance with a gourmand undertone as well. It's sweet, it's a little bit chocolatey, but it also has a note that some people compare to melted roads or something like that, tarmac melting or tar. Interesting. Very heavy on the patchouli, and there's a bit of that in this one too. Pure Havane, of course, let's talk about the name. Some of the pure this and pure that stuff from Mugler describes exactly what it's all about. Pure malt. It's got a multi-note in it. Pure Coffee has a coffee note, guess what? Pure Havane, of course, is named after Havana, the capital of Cuba, and Cuba as a country, of course, is famous for its production of cigars. Many people believe they produce the finest cigars in the world. Also, it's famously associated with the imagery of romanticized revolutionary figures like Che Guevara and Fidel Castro, who are often seen smoking cigars, and they're in their military fatigues, and there's a certain glamour about the image of Cuba, a sort of rebellious glamour about the country. So it's a nice bit of imagery that might work for some people. Also, maybe it's the kind of fragrance you might imagine Tony Montana, the famous criminal from Scarface, wearing it. It's that kind of vibe. So it's definitely a sweet fragrance. It's kind of leathery at the same time, and you do pick up on this tobacco note, a nice, pleasant tobacco leaf kind of note. I've got them both on cards here, so let's sniff Pure Havane. Yeah, very, very pleasant. I've sprayed both on a card and it's actually filled up the room with a nice and it's kind of similar aura that you get from both, and they combine well actually in the air. Pure Havane then, it's really one of my favourite gourmandish designer fragrances for men. You don't get a lot of citrus, which we noted was listed in Naxos. There's none of that really in here. It's a combination of smooth leather, I think, a little bit of nice pleasant tobacco leaf, but not super vibrant or natural smelling, kind of a synthetic but pleasant tobacco accord, and an undertone of a sweetness, or well, more than an undertone. It's fairly sweet, vanillic. Cocoa is the listed note, but I pick up more of a kind of a general vanilla sweetness vibe. It's very, very good stuff. I'd give it like an 8.5 out of 10, I think. Performance, really good for me. Not beast mode, but good. Lasts well. Projection, okay, not massive in the air, but decent longevity. Great fragrance for any kind of medium temperature or colder temperatures. Probably I wouldn't favour it on a really hot summer day when I want to feel invigorated. So it's very nice. Let's compare it then to the more prestigious fragrance of the two, which is, of course, Naxos by Xerjoff. So I have that on a card here. This fragrance, in contrast, is part of their 1861 Renaissance series, and this series is themed around the country Xerjoff. The brand is from Italy, and all the blurb, the marketing stuff, sort of talks about Mediterranean smells and the sophistication and chicness maybe of Italy. So a very different kind of vibe, but they do share some significant notes. So the difference for me in the opening, this is much more fresh in the first few moments when you spray it. You definitely do get an element of some citrus, some bergamot, and that kind of classic Italian cologne vibe is hidden here just to a tiny extent, although it's a much different fragrance to any kind of freshie. The theme continues with some very sophisticated combinations of the other notes, and a feeling overall for me that this one is much more three-dimensional and higher quality smelling than the Pure Havane by Mugler. That does smell, not in a necessarily really bad way, but it smells like something you would find in your average department store. It smells more like a high street or mainstream designer fragrance. This to me, I think if I blind sniffed them and didn't know about them, I'd say this one has to be the niche one. It's sparkling, it's three-dimensional, and the combination of the citrus with sweetness, with a little bit of cinnamon in there, a little bit of a spicy feel, which the other one, it doesn't really have a lot of spiciness, I don't find, Pure Havane. And this lovely tobacco leaf note, and again, it's a little bit more like you can imagine the actual fresh green tobacco leaves being in the room with you, whereas the other one, it's kind of a synthetic representation of tobacco, in my humble opinion. So for me, Xerjoff Naxos, it's a bit like if the other one was an old tape that you've got and you put it in your car stereo, in the days when your car stereo might have had a tape player in it, and it was, the tape literally belonged to your dad and you'd had it since 1978 or something like that. And it kind of, the thing's aged a little bit, and it's a little bit muffled, and it's still, the album still sounds good. Maybe it's Led Zeppelin, and it's okay, but the EQ and stuff, it's not quite as three-dimensional as you'd like it to be. Then you go out and you get a new car with a CD player, and you get the remastered edition of the Led Zeppelin song, and suddenly it's bang, bang, the drums are crisp, you can hear the hi-hat, and the vocals sparkle, everything's more clearly defined. That's how I feel Naxos is. Did they do that deliberately? Is it just a remaster of Pure Havane? Well, if so, they did a great job. They've also lifted it though with some extra sparkle, some freshness in the beginning. It doesn't really have that kind of tarry, patchouli, leathery thing, which is in there to an extent in Pure Havane. So for me, the clear winner, and still a 10 out of 10 fragrance, would be this one, Naxos by Xerjoff. I think it's the best one, and of course the price for a full bottle is kind of designer prices for the Pure Havane. Not sure if it's been discontinued, it seems to be less prevalent, but it's still out there and gettable, so you can get it on discounters if you do opt for a full bottle. And the Xerjoff, of course, expensive. I think maybe £170 is your RRP for the 100ml bottle. If you can't decide yet, or you haven't tried both, great idea is to get a sample from Fragrance Samples UK. Like I say, a decant of the Xerjoff is a great option. So you can, I like 10ml decants. I like the idea of those. It's not just a tiny sample. You can try it out for a few weeks really. And I think they're a really great way to go when you're sampling fragrances. So don't forget to check out the lovely, great range of fragrance samples over at Fragrance Samples UK. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know which of these two you think is the best value for money, the best fragrance overall. Which would you plump for? Maybe neither. Let me know in the comments down below. As ever, guys, thank you ever so much for watching. Remember, whatever you're doing in life, let's project. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Smelly.